Hello and welcome to the 8-man Nightmare Mode The Writhing Horror Boss Fight Guide. My name's Hayete, and today I'll be going over everything you need to know to successfully complete the first fight in the Terror from Beyond operation. For this encounter, we suggest you bring a standard composition of 2 tanks, 4 DPS, and 2 healers. Any class composition will be more than capable of beating this fight. For this guide, I'll only be covering the Nightmare-specific mechanics and differences. If you need to brush up on the foundational mechanics, please take a moment and head on over to our hard mode Writhing Horror guide. That will get you up to speed on everything you need to know prior to watching this video. Alright, now let me touch on the DPS requirements for this fight. This fight was analyzed using the same process as the hard mode version analysis. The enrage time for this fight is 5 minutes and 50 seconds. The following is an analysis based on this enrage time. As with all my standard analysis, this adjusted DPS is assuming your tanks are doing 1500 DPS each. This should be much higher than this during live raid, so this is a lowball figure but serves as a worst case scenario. Based on the information shown here, you can see the individual DPS requirement for this fight is quite high. Total health for the encounter is up 12.5% over hard mode, and DPS requirements increased roughly 42% over hard mode. With that said, these figures do not translate well to live raid. A better baseline for if your DPS players are where they need to be is wrapped up in the total damage done per DPS. Depending on assigned roles during this fight, some DPS players will be much higher, while others lower. Either way, your total DPS among all members in your group should be very close to the total HP present in the encounter. Alright, so on to mechanics, or the lack thereof. This fight is one of the few encounters in the game where there are no new mechanics to discuss. More or less, the new mechanic for this fight is the amount of damage done. Certain mechanics hit much harder in Nightmare mode. So let's move on to strategy. You'll play this fight, for the most part, exactly the same as you've done in hard mode. There are a few things, however, you'll want to consider to get as much damage on the boss as possible, due to the tight enrage time you'll be faced with. First, you'll want to get your healers in on DPSing the boss as much as possible. Assuming all group members are following proper mechanics and execution of those mechanics, healers can easily get around 500 to 1000 DPS each on this fight. So if you're healing this encounter, be sure to do as much as you can, but do not prioritize DPS over heals. Next is the amount of damage done by Corrosive Slime. In Nightmare mode, the debuff gained by this ability does a large amount of damage. Because of this, you'll want to prioritize cleansing this ability as soon as possible. More or less, as soon as you see this debuff, cleanse it. The players you choose for the calming pheromones and the order in which you choose those players can significantly affect your DPS either positively or negatively. I'm going to go over the most widely used methods here and then give you my specific suggestion. The first is to have healers take the first 2 circles and then have DPS players take them after. Generally speaking, this would be a ranged DPS, but if you're melee heavy, get your DPS player into the circle before your ranged players so that during burn phase, you can keep your melee on the boss. This strategy works well unless the boss moves beyond the range of the circle you have a healer in. If your other healer is incapable of solo healing during this, you can quickly find yourself in a bad place. The second method is very similar to the first, but excludes the healers. You would run the strategy the same as the first, having melee go first, then rotate through your ranged DPS. The last strategy is my personal preference, but is somewhat unorthodox and not widely utilized. This strategy requires the most teamwork and precision to do effectively. For this strategy, you will not have any players move into the calming pheromone circles. Instead, you'll stack your entire group on the boss except for the tank holding the jealous male. The tank with the jealous male should be the one spawning the foul offspring ads. You'll want to keep this tank close to the group, but not in a position where the jealous male's knockback will hit the group. At any rate, as the ads spawn, you'll want your main tank to taunt all foul offsprings. At this point, healers will need to start throwing heals out on the tank, and all DPS AoE the adds down. The reason I prefer this method is out of the 3 methods, it allows you to still DPS the boss. The Foul Offspring adds die quickly enough regardless of the strategy used, and getting splash damage on the boss from killing the Offspring adds will help with beating the enrage time. This is, however, the most risky of these strategies. The last thing to mention for this fight is the boss's movement throughout the encounter. Unlike hard mode, in Nightmare, the boss does not follow a set pattern. In Nightmare, the boss will randomly move between the 4 spots noted in the hard mode guide. To be honest, this probably won't matter much for most groups, but is worth mentioning as it is a noticeable difference. So that's the fight, guys. This encounter is really simple and very much the hard mode encounter other than the increased damage profiles and the random movement of the boss. So if this video helped you, please feel free to pay it forward and help us by dropping us a like and subscribing. If you have any questions, suggestions, tips, and tricks, or think of something I may have missed, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. If you'd like to connect beyond YouTube, please take a moment and head over to Hayete.net, where there you'll find links to Twitter and Twitch live streaming. So until next time, guys, take care and enjoy the fight.